a slightly different angle today because we are about to be a little bit ruthless. I have a huge stack of books that I need to get on these two shelves and nowhere to currently put them. So I've just decided it's time for a ruthless unhaul. I am going to be cutting some books. My main things that I'm going to be looking at are thrillers. I just haven't been reading a ton of thrillers, although I will keep some because I definitely go through a thriller mood when we get into the October, winter, fall, you know, just like the spooky vibe season. Sci-fi? Unfortunately, I just have not been gravitating towards sci-fi. I will definitely keep some, especially those series that I've already started and really been enjoying, but I do think that it's time for me to get rid of what I'm not ever going to read. I don't really think I have a lot of contemporary romance, and then we're also going to take a look at the fantasy shelf and see if there's anything on there that I've just been kind of hanging on to that I'm never going to get to and need to go ahead and get it out of here. So those are the plans for today. Let's see how many books that we end up unhauling. I'm not going to take you guys like shelf by shelf, but I am going to kind of just start going through. I'll show you what I drag off, and then we're probably going to end up taking it to Goodwill. Okay, so I've gone through a couple of shelves and I've already pulled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books. So we're off to a very cutthroat start. I don't know how many books I'm going to get rid of. I need to get some things cleared off to make room for the stuff that I'm loving. So anyway, first up on the chopping block is Insomnia by Sarah Pinborough. I liked this book, but the further I got into it, the more downhill it went for me. And while I do remember mostly liking it, I don't remember a whole lot else about it. I'm never going to reread it, and it's not one that I have recommended since I've read it, so there's no reason for me to keep this. Then I'm going to be getting rid of A History of Wild Places. I know this is some people's favorite book, or at least something that they really, really loved, but this has been sitting on my shelves since it was put out by Book of the Month in December of 2021. I'm not going to read this. If I have not already, I'm not going to. So it needs to get off my shelves. Then we have two that I have read and actually really enjoyed, but they're just not things that I need to keep on my shelves anymore. The first is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I did really like this book. I thought it had a little too many twists at the end, but I enjoyed it. However, it's Book of the Month, and I just am trying to kind of slowly get the Book of the Months out a little bit, just because they don't really fit into my shelves super well. I will still read them. I will still get them if there's something that I like, but I don't need to keep this. I've already read it. I'm never going to reread it. Same thing for My Lovely Wife. I enjoyed this, but I'm never going to reread it. Since my channel doesn't really focus on thrillers, and neither of these are things that I can see myself needing to hang on to hold up in videos, I think that both of these are books that I'm not going to reread, but I do think other people could really enjoy, so I'm going to get them out of here. Two more that I have read. The first is The Unwanted Guest by Sherry Lapina. This was just fine. I think I gave it a 3-star. It's a great atmospheric, wintry story, but I find Sherry Lapina to be a little bit too slow for me. And then The Angel Maker by Alex North. I loved The Shadows, but The Angel Maker fell really flat for me. It was kind of boring, and this is an arc, so it will just be going to Goodwill. And the last 4 that I have already pulled off is, one is The Overnight Guest. I actually loved this one. I gave it a 5-star. It was very like a good atmospheric fun read for me, but again, it's not something that I will ever reread. It's not something I see myself just recommending, not because it's not a good book, but again, because I don't typically recommend a lot of thrillers over here. So we're gonna get rid of that one. Shudder, I bought because it was on a buy one, get one half off, and I needed another book, and it sounded mildly interesting, and I haven't thought about it since, so it needs to go. Monster Island, I bought this because it was short and we were doing the 72 hours in the haunted house. I needed some more short options, but since then I've heard some really not so good reviews for this book. Don't think that it's really going to be for me, and I'm not gravitating toward it. And then The Bat by Jo Nesbo. I was actually planning to read this whole series. I wanted to collect all of the books, and since then I have just never felt the urge to pick up book 2 or book 3. I've heard book 3 is actually where you probably should have started, but I have a very hard time doing that. So I'm just like, why keep it? Why keep it if I'm not going to read the rest of the series? Okay, I have a few more. I'm not going to be touching the kind of Riley Sager shelf as much as there are some of his books that I do not like. I do like having the books on my shelves. And then Darcy we're not touching. It's my life's mission to collect every single one of Darcy's books. So this shelf is a no touch. But I did find a couple. The first is going to be the Broken Girls by Simone St. James. And then I'm also going to be unhauling the Sundown Motel. I liked both of these, but neither one are things that have stuck with me, and I've read several Simone St. James since then that I really have not liked. I'm not going to be collecting all of her books, so I think that these probably need to go. Then we have The Lies We Told. This one was a book of the month in October of 2018, and I read it then, really enjoyed it. Haven't thought about it since. Why am I still keeping this? And lastly for right now is 56 Days by Catherine Ryan Howard. This is a COVID thriller. I read it. It was something I read. It was fine. Again, it's book of the month. I don't need to keep this on my shelves. You're about to not be able to see me, but I'm moving on from the kind of thriller horror to the sci-fi shelves. So let me see what I can find down here. Told you guys I am being absolutely ruthless right now. I am just trying to get rid of things that I know I'm not gonna like. Okay, I think I'm gonna get rid of Revelation Space. I have started this one, tried to read it, found it to be extremely dense, and since I'm not in my sci-fi era, I don't think dense is really what I need, so we're gonna be getting rid of this one. I'm going to be unhauling Asimov. I don't know why I got this book. This is like for the sci-fi people. I'm not a sci-fi person. So why did I get this? I don't know. I'm going to be unhauling it. Starter Villain by John Scalzi. I've read some things by him before and they were okay. Like I liked his novella, The Dispatcher and DNF'd. What is that one called? The one with the beastie things. Wow. But I did not like it. His writing style is a little bit too funny, quirky humor for me, and I've heard that this is probably one that I am not going to like. I'm so sad because like the cat on the cover is absolutely freaking incredible, but I've heard that this is not going to be a book that I like. Lexi told me I probably wouldn't like it. I trust Lexi, so I think I'm going to get rid of this one. Then we have The Stars Undying. This one was sent to me by the publisher a long time ago, and I wanted this to be something that I was super interested in. I think it is a retelling of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar, and then set in like a sci-fi setting. I don't know. This is a book that I've had for forever. I don't think it's anything I'm ever going to pick up or gravitate toward. It's very, very chunky, so it's a little bit intimidating, and it just needs to go. And then we also have Fractal Noise by Christopher Paolini. I think I am going to keep the To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I couldn't remember the title of that book. I'm going to keep that one, but I think I'm going to unhaul this one. I liked this. I think the audiobook was well done for this, but it didn't just like really stick with me. I don't think that it complements To Sleep in a Sea of Stars enough to make them a pair and to want to keep both of them, so I'm going to be unhauling this one. I've heard Ascension is not a book that I'm really going to like. It is one that I still probably will read, but it's not one I need on my shelves. I probably will do like audiobook or ebook for this one, get it from the library. And then I'm also going to be unhauling Blood Trials, which I'm kind of sad about. This is a hardcover edition that I don't think you can buy anymore. And while I really liked this book, I have absolutely no desire to continue on to the second book of the series. I've heard that it's not very good. It really doesn't hit home like the first book does. And being kind of out of my sci-fi era, even though this is a sci-fantasy, I just don't ever see me picking up book 2, so I don't need to keep book 1. Translation State, I bought not realizing it wasn't the first book in the series. I have since been told that you could probably read this without having read the first book in the series, but again, I'm not in my sci-fi era, so I really just need to kind of get it off the shelves. As gorgeous as this book is, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read it anytime soon. It could be 5 years before I read it. I can get it from the library at that point. And then a lot of people are going to be sad to see this one go, but it's because of the edition. I'm never going to have like matching editions, nor do I really want matching editions because I never plan to read Artemis. But while I liked this book, I don't, again, need to keep it on my shelves, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. It's a book of the month edition. They're not my favorite, and I just don't need to keep this on my shelves, especially if it's never going to match the other editions. I'll just buy it again when I can get other editions to match it. We're not going to talk about how I just had to stand in the chair to reach the tops of my shelves. I pulled off a few more. I'm not going to go through all of the books that I'm pulling off because there's a lot of them and this video would be 9,000 years long. But a couple that I did want to highlight, I'm going to be getting rid of the first and second Finley Donovan. I liked this one. I thought it was fun. Since then, everybody that has been raving, ranting, crying about this series has said that it kind of goes downhill the further it goes along. I don't have any immediate plans to pick up book 2 anyway, so I think that I can get these from the library pretty easily. I'm going to be unhauling all of the Megan O'Keefe that I had. I read Velocity Weapon and it was fine, but again, because it was just fine, there was no drive for me to pick up book 2. I don't know when or if I ever will. And then I don't know why I bought the Blighted Stars. I don't know. I think I wanted to love her, and so I picked it up, but I'm not gonna read that anytime soon. So I think I'm gonna get rid of all 3 of these. And then I'm also going to be unhauling Gothic Hannah. I don't know why I bought this book. I really don't. I think because it was black, it had a building on the cover, and it was a school setting, and I thought I would read it for Realmathon. I didn't, and now I never will. So it's a beautiful edition, but it needs to go to someone that's going to appreciate it more than me. And then I had a couple of fantasy on the top of this shelf before we flip over to my other bigger fantasy shelf. And I'm going to be unhauling The Art of Prophecy and Dragonflight. I don't know when or if I'm ever going to read these. I started this one. The first chapter did not really hook me, and Cassidy read it and said it was just okay for her. We have very similar tastes when it comes to fantasy. I trust her, so I think I'm going to get rid of this one. And Dragonflight, she did get 5 stars, but I've also read the first chapter-ish. This doesn't really have true chapters, but chapter-ish of this book could not get into it. So I think I'm going to unhaul it. Again, if I ever decide to pick it up, which I very well may, I'll just get it from the library, and then if I love it, I can always rebuy it. Time to change gears. We're going to the fantasy shelves, and we're going to see what we can yank off from here. Okay, I had a harder time with this shelf, but I still managed to pull off quite a few, so let's just hit the highlights, and then I think I will be able to count my finals and see how many I am going to be getting rid of. A full series that I'm kind of sad to be getting rid of is the Black Coast series. I really, really liked book 1, but then when I read book 2, I was not a huge fan, and I read them probably 2 years ago at this point, and just have not been interested in continuing, and so I think that I'm going to unhaul the series. I hate to do that because these are like the pretty UK editions, but I'm kind of out of my fantasy era right now, and I just don't think that these are ones I'm going to get to anytime soon. So I'm going to unhaul them, and then I can always library them later if I need to. 2 that I've read that I think I'm going to be getting rid of. I kind of hate to get rid of this one because it is so pretty, but it's The Kingdom of Liars by Nick Martell. I read this and found it generally fine. I definitely picked it up because of a cover buy, but I don't see myself continuing in this series anytime soon, if ever, honestly, because it was a 3-star read for me. So I need to stop hoarding 3-star books. Then we have the Liza Van Jungo. This is one that I read for 72 hours. I enjoyed this, but it's not something that I need to keep. It was fine. It was something I would recommend, but again, I'm not going to continue on in the series. It's a very, very, very small novella, so it needs to go. I'm going to hurt a few people's soul, but I think I'm going to unhaul Radiance by Grace Draven. This book was fine, but I'm not going to continue in the series. It's friends to lovers. It's a little too cutesy for me. It's not really my thing. So I do want to give this to somebody that I think is going to enjoy it a little bit more than me. It was fine, but I don't need to keep it. I'm going to be unhauling City of Stardust. Again, this is one of those I bought for Realmathon thinking I would read it, and then I read some reviews for it. Some people that I trusted reviewed it, and I was like, not going to be picking that up anytime soon, so I'm going to be getting rid of this one. Same thing for Age of Myth. I was hoping that I would enjoy this. Cassidy was reading it for her Patreon, and I just decided that after hearing kind of everybody talking about it, it wasn't going to be the book for me. I hate mass market paperbacks. I do not want them on my shelves. I don't hate to read them. I just don't like the way they look up there, so this can definitely be a library read for me. A couple that I'm going to be getting rid of are The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. I've tried to read this a couple of times, never been fully able to get into it, and they cover changed these, so you can't even get this cover anymore. As much as I prefer it to the new ones, if I read it and love it and plan to continue the whole series, I'm gonna have to rebuy them all anyway, so I need to just go ahead and get rid of this one while I can. Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I was holding on to this one, just really hoping that it would be something that I would love. It's a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, but I just don't think Olivia Blake is for me. I think her writing is just a little bit too purple prosy for my liking, and I do struggle with it. I will probably finish off the Atlas 6 series, but that is probably the last Olivia Blake that I will likely pick up. And then we have In the Shadow of Lightning by Brian McClellan. I have been holding on to this one, waiting for book 2 to come out, thinking, okay, well maybe I will continue on in the series, but I don't remember anything about this. I remember it being like a 3.5-star read. It was pretty good, but not great, and I don't remember how it ended or anything about it. So when and if I do decide to pick up the rest of the series when it's finished, I can always get these again or read them from the library, but I just don't think that I need to keep a book that was mediocre that I don't remember anything about on my shelves. And I think the last ones I'm going to mention are going to hurt some people's hearts, and I am fully prepared to crush hearts and to break souls, and just it's fine, but I don't think that I'm going to be continuing this series, and so I don't need these chunky books taking up so much room on my shelves. And that is the Ruin of Kings series by Jen Lyons. I really liked book 1. I really liked book 2, but I have absolutely no drive to pick up the rest of the series in this. People that I trust have said that book 3 really went downhill for them, and they're really chunky, and I just don't see myself reading the rest of the series anytime soon. I got most of these super cheap on Books A Million, so it's not like I can't re-get these pretty easily if I decide that I want them, but yeah, I think these are gonna have to go. Okay, so I think those are all of the ones that I am going to mention. Let me go count and see how many unhaul books we ended up with. And the final tally is 75 books. I have managed to get 75 books off of my shelves. Now, I think I showed you guys the book haul that I need to get onto the shelves, which is probably like 50 books, so I don't know how much room I actually made, but we made some decent progress. We got rid of some books, and I'm pretty proud of myself for that. I will be doing a bookshelf tour at some point where I will show you guys my shelves and kind of what all is on them, but I really wanted to get all of the books that I enjoy and love onto the shelves first, and then we can kind of finish it out and show you guys what they look like in the final set. So we're done. That's it. 75 books off of these shelves. I feel like I was pretty cutthroat, and honestly, I'm sitting here going, I could actually get rid of that one and that one and that one. So I may end up pulling a couple of more after we close out this clip, but I am pretty proud of myself for being more cutthroat and getting rid of some books. So that is it. Thank you all for hanging out with me. Let me know, do you unhaul books or do you hoard? Do you buy books to need to unhaul them in the first place? And what makes you unhaul a book? I want to know what like drives you to get rid of a book if you've read it or if you haven't read it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you just want to let me know that you were here, leave me a getting out of here kind of emoji down below, and I will leave up some of my other unhauls up here for you guys in case you want to check them out. Be on the lookout for a good book haul coming in the next week or so. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!